Oh yeah, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I am back on my How to Win at RPGs nonsense. And I want to, before we get into today's second part of Hirelings, I wanted to just mention what an amazing game this is. What a masterpiece Gary Gygax gave us 40 years later, and we still have not plumbed the depths of this game. We're still discovering new ways to play. We, and by we I mean Dan Davies, apologies for, I can't believe I spaced on his name. He's a great guy. He runs Brain Leakage, the blog. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. Spoilers, I rarely do. But he is also on Twitter, so give him a look-see, because he's the guy that really clued me in on how we have been using fighters wrong for a long time. Maybe that's a wrong way to put it. We haven't necessarily been using them wrong, but we've been underutilizing their full skill set. Because as we talked about in the last edition of How to Win at RPGs, there's a couple of little subtle intricacies that if you read these books closely, you will discover that fighters have a unique ability to boss people around. They are natural-born leaders of men. Today, we're going to be responding to a lot of comments. There's comments. The last video caused I don't want to say a furor. It caused a lot of discussion around the digital water cooler, both for good or ill. And we're going to respond to a lot of those comments. I haven't, again, we're speaking extemporaneously. We're just kind of going off the cuff, kind of absorbed, by osmosis, the general vibe that the video had. And so I don't have names, but I apologize. The best thing to do is go check out the comments on that video. I'll miss some of them, but there's a lot of really good, call it scholarship or analysis going on about hirelings and looking at them and using them in a new way, particularly with the way that hirelings can drive the domain game, and you don't have to wait until name level to play that domain game. You've got the funds as a first level character, and not just fighters. Fighters are the best at this, but just as a fighter can bonk things with a pointy stick, a wizard can bonk things in melee with a staff. He's not as good at it. And in the same way, the wizard is not as good at being a leader of men. He can, and we'll get into that in a moment. So the first thing I want to address is the question that a commenter on the last video made. It was brilliant, and I really should know his name. I apologize. He said, hey, you got a problem with the way you're reading the text here in the DMG. And here it is. I'm referring, of course, to page 31, where it says, a sergeant is the leader of a small body of troops. All sergeants are first-level fighters. Okay, well, sergeants are hirelings, they're NPCs, and someone pointed out, just because all sergeants are first-level fighters, that does not mean that all first-level fighters are sergeants. That's valid but irrelevant. Bear in mind that we have just come out of 40 years of playing fighters as not sergeants. We know that not all fighters are sergeants. And the point of the video calling for an increased emphasis on hirelings, or at least opening the door to the possibility of hirelings, is not that this is the only way to play the fighter, but that this is a vastly underutilized and unconsidered way of playing a fighter. You'll see here on the Player's Handbook, page 22, a first-level fighter is a veteran. And here's a very good point that someone said. Now, in my example, as I was analyzing hirelings last week, I mentioned that, hey, if you're getting paid 2 gold pieces a month to be a heavy foot, then that means that, if you're coming out of your service with 200 gold pieces, well, that's 10 years right there. So you're a 10-year veteran. Well, somebody pointed out, I really doubt that, because if you look here in the early pages of the DMG, and as I'm fumbling for this, let me just point out, you've got hundreds of pages of rules here. This is a very legalistic text, and there's a lot of different ways to read things. Just looking at the hirelings and realizing that sergeants are first-level fighters opens up huge possibilities. I should say can be, to, assuage the sensitive egos of some of my viewers. This is a reference book, and you never get everything right the first time. Even someone as amazing as me, ha ha ha, makes mistakes. And one of the mistakes that I made was saying, yeah, you're a first-level veteran sergeant. Now, if you are playing by the book, we need to look at the starting age. For humans, it goes by class. So, dwarves, your starting dwarf is going to be, 250 plus 2d20. Now, there is some, I don't want to say controversy, but some discussion about whether dwarves mature, they go through puberty at the same rate as humans and then spend 250 years as a middle-aged guy, or do they wind up spending 200 years reaching maturity and then become a middle-aged guy for, the saber. But we're not going to talk about that. It's an interesting question, not the point of the video. Point of the video today is, when I said you're a 10-year veteran, well, if we look at the fighter here, they start off at the age of 16 to 19. All right, so first we'll deal with the valid, right? So yeah, good point. Thanks for pointing that out. Your 19-year-old is probably not a 10-year veteran, except, whoa, time out. Remember that this is not a modern-day war game. You do not enlist at the age of 18. Au contraire, mon frere. This is, see, look at these guys. What era do these guys come from? It sure ain't the modern day. Maybe in 100, 200 years, we'll be back to fighting like this. But these guys, you're getting a much more Dark Age vibe. And the vibe that you get from this is from way back in the day. And you don't even have to turn your clock back to the 10th, 11th, 12th century to find examples of 10-year veterans that are only 19 years old. You look at let's go back to the Civil War, the American Civil War. Well, I mean, in certain places of the world today, there are child soldiers. Unfortunately, there are child soldiers. Look at the American Civil War. That's 150 years ago, and you see drummer boys that start up at the age of 10 to even 12. You look at the Napoleonic era. We've all seen Master and Commander. We've all seen those powder monkeys that you just want to grab them and hold them and say, buddy, you don't have to do this anymore. You just want to take good care of those wide-eyed little whippersnappers. They started at a very young age. You could very well have, if you abandon the pretense that you are just gaming in the current year, plus 5 years, of course, Seattle, where, all I can imagine is what I see out my window. If you don't have any historical context, then, these age tables may not make a lot of sense. Wait, a veteran of only 16 years old? Yeah, it's a different time, and you need to adjust your expectations accordingly. You need to understand that this starts from a template of historical Dark Ages, or maybe the Greco-Roman times, something like that. But you have to understand the historical context on which you are layering the fantasy realms. The historical context gives you a solid bedrock foundation on which to start layering the fantasy elements. So that's the other thing I would caution you. Get out of your own heads, get out of your own experience, read a book or two. Hey, I wonder if there isn't a list of books here in the back of the book that we can look at. We'll discover what inspiration Gygax drew when he, of course, Appendix N, right? Go read 4 Appendix N books, man. Your life will be so much better. So that's the good point. Maybe not 10 years, but the bad point is, well, geez, a veteran's not going to be 18 years old. A 10-year veteran can't be 19. Yeah, maybe he can. But again, it's your character. You do with you what you want with him. I still maintain playing the game raw is the way to go. Use those age charts. And then, again, a lot of you guys sit down and say, look, here's what I want to be. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to happen. Here's the result I want. That's the wrong way to look at it. So much of what happens with these discussions of how to win at RPGs is me reminding you that that's putting the cart before the horse. First, you roll the dice, and then you figure out what the dice mean. You don't decide what the dice mean and then roll them. If you're going to do that, just dispense with the middleman. Get rid of the dice altogether and just play Happy Storytime Hour. Just play Mother May I with your DM, okay? Now, we are, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes into this video, and we still haven't talked about anything but fighters. And here's where we unlock the secret to power up your first level magic user, okay? So we're going to go, and again, I may miss a couple of rules here and there because there's a lot of things that interact in a lot of fun and exciting ways. So if we go to look at that, I open right to wait a minute, that's the cleric. I actually want to look at the starting gold for our bros, for our dudes, for our heroic adventurers. Let's see, how much money does a magic user start out with? Now, somebody crossed out monk. How dare you? I wonder why he did that. So our magic user only starts with 20 to 80 gold pieces. But what does he really need to buy, right? He needs a robe. He doesn't need to buy armor. He doesn't need to buy as much stuff. So if we recall back to the previous video, we found that you can equip a guy for about 7 gold pieces, and you can pay him 3 months' salary for 13 gold. Well, why don't I hire 2 guys with leather armor and spears and a wooden shield to accompany my magic user? We all know that at first level, and we all complain about the fact that at first level, my magic user gets a whopping, that's druids. My magic user, that's clerics. See, we got this. This is why we do it, right? This is why we refer. At first level, our where's there we go. Rangers. What? There should be a chart here for. There we go. Magic users. Finally, I only get one spell. And we all know that spell is going to be Magic Missile or Sleep or something equally boring and something that lacks sticking power and that is only useful in a I'm going to solo it campaign. Abandon the I'm going to solo it campaign, bring along 2 buddies to help you out, and suddenly your magic user can start flinging darts with Wild Abandon because he's got his meat shields in front of them, right? Those guys are making hazardous duty pay, and you may want to give them a little bump for their morale bonus, for that all-important morale bonus. But the point is, if you're starting with 50 gold and you've only spent 20 of it, you still have 30 gold pieces. Get yourself a couple of spear carriers. Those guys are going to prove in good stead. And not only because they're going to protect you, not only because they give your character more survivability, they give you more options. Now I can roll 3 dice per combat round. Isn't that exciting? That's much better, don't you think? But also, if all they're doing is wearing leather armor and a spear and carrying a shield, well, that frees up some of the... Oh boy, where is it? It's in the back here. This is such an important rule that Gary put it in the back couple of pages, right? Loyalty. We talked about that a little bit. And here it is right here, top of the page. Encumbrance of standard items. Our guys are going to be walking around carrying 25 pounds worth of stuff. They've got an extra 40 pounds worth of carrying capacity before they slow down, 45, 50, whatever it is. That gives you the option to carry out an extra, if you do get that big haul, you've got an extra couple of porters for those giant sacks of experience points that are also gold that, maybe you take the hit. Hey guys, you get 10% of what I keep. Right, give them that bonus. And I don't know. You guys may say, "Well, that makes them a henchman." Okay, it could be. It's possible. I'm not gonna belabor the point. Look, I paid you 2 gold pieces to kill goblins and carry loot. You killed the goblins, you carried loot. Here's your 2 gold pieces. But that is one of the other benefits that you get. The question then arises: well, hey, wait a second. If a magic user's got the gold to do that, why? At some point, the magic user's also going to want to hire 10 spear carriers. And why? What is the limit? At what point do I need to start paying out the big bucks? Remember, it's only a couple of coin for a month of service. But at some point, you need to start hiring your captains and your sergeants and your LTs. At what point do you have to do that? Well, we can look at when they are encountered. It says right here, well, types will seldom be mixed, so you're going to have to hire them independently. But even more important, if more than 5 are encountered, one will be a sergeant, a leader type equivalent to a non-commissioned officer. If more than 5 are encountered, one will be a sergeant. That tells me that you can hire 5 guys. And this just makes sense. So much of this game is, what do you expect would happen? Okay, now, how do you rationalize and justify this little bit of guidance that Gary has given us? And the answer is very simple. If you're a manager, you can effectively, and you don't have a whole lot of experience, you can manage the personality conflicts and keep track of about 5 guys. For our magic user, remember that he still has to study his books. He still has to get rest. He still has to manage his inventory. He still has to do all the magic usery things. He wants to do some research. He does not have time to manage an entire army. So at a certain point, the number of conflicts, personality conflicts, and trying to keep these guys on task. I got these 2 guys over here that are, hunting, and I got this guy over here. He's watering the horses, and I got that. Wait, what is that guy doing? I can't remember because I just want to read my books. Wouldn't it be great if I had one guy, and that guy is a sergeant, right? Once you hit number 6, you've got to hire a sergeant. And then, okay, well, but at what point do I need a second sergeant? And even that is located right here. If we go down to the sergeant entry, a sergeant is a leader of men, there must be 1 sergeant minimum for every 10 regular soldiers. So what that tells me is that up to 10 soldiers, I gotta have at least 1 sergeant. So there's your first ratio. If I am up to 5 guys, 5 hirelings, I'm good. I don't need middle management. I can handle it. Regardless of my charisma. Remember, this is the charisma. We'll talk about that in a second. But remember what we're talking about is management. There must be one sergeant, and there can be one per 5. Okay, so one sergeant for 5 guys. There's your magic ratio right there. The monthly cost per sergeant is 10 times the rate of the troops he commands, right? So you can't mix and match sergeants. A sergeant of heavy foot cannot serve medium horsemen. So bear that in mind as well. If I decide I want 5 light foot, those guys are going to go off hunting for me, and I got 5 heavy foot that are going to guard my tower. I might need a sergeant for both of those. And it says that a sergeant costs 10 times as much as the base pay. We know from the chart on the next page that, so the next page or the previous page? I can't remember. There we go. Previous page. We know that our heavy foot costs 2 gold per month. Sergeants cost 20 gold per month. Well, how do we know when I need to bump that up one more time? And you just read the entry for captain, and it says each captain can manage 40 troops. Now here, there's a little bit of a question, because the question becomes, well, does the sergeant, is he included in those troops? And there's a couple of ways to handle that. One is to say no. The other way is to say, you know what, I'm just going to have 9 line troops and a sergeant. You know, that's good. I'm good. You keep it nice round numbers at 10. They're all in here. It's really complicated if you just try to read it right through and absorb it all. But if you just start small, start at first level, 5 guys and a sergeant. There are 5 guys. And then, you know, at second level, then you've got 10 guys and a sergeant. Third level, oh, wait a minute. Now, how many sergeants do I need before I need a captain? And I guess, we can look at that, right? A captain is a fighter at 5th, 6th, or 7th level. Let's see. It says here, with lieutenant, if more than 10 soldiers. What does that go to? Oh, that's the number encountered. So you may get, anyway, I'm belaboring the point. I don't mean to do that. The point is that it's all in here. Just look at it, right? You can rationalize it however you want. But basically, a captain is going to be a 5th level guy. So he can command as many scores of troops as levels. All right. So what does that mean? Well, again, I would also defer to, look, if I can manage 5 guys, that means I can manage 5 sergeants. That's reasonable. If I can manage 5 sergeants, then I don't need to bump up to the captain level until I hire that 6th sergeant. It's fractal in nature, right? Pretty easy. So the other thing we should look at is morale, right? Because some people said, well, geez, what if I had some comments where people thought, what if I had a terrible charisma score? Then how does that affect this? And the answer is in the morale rules. So the first thing we got to look at is charisma bonuses here, right? General information. And what we're looking for is loyalty base and reaction adjustment. Now, reaction adjustment is the reaction that NPCs have. Hopefully, if you've got that low charisma, right? 6, 5, 4, you got a good looking friend that can serve as the face man of the group. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to worry about loyalty base. If I only have a charisma of 5 and my henchmen are going to have a loyalty base of minus 20, what is it going to take to overcome that base of 20? Well, we're right back to that last page I showed you before. Well, okay, so let's just go down the list. Well, we're trying to compensate for a base penalty of 20. Well, if they've served with you for 5 years, oh man, if you're playing one-to-one time, which you should, you don't got 5 years to wait. So then we come up here and we look at the top part of the screen where it says entitlement or association. If they're a slave, well, we know that's not the case, right? We know that this is a hired mercenary, so that's not going to help us. What about training? If there's little training or levied troops, well, you're smart enough to hire some of your friends from the service, right? Those are trained regulars. You're already halfway there, plus 10%. Pay, oh, look at that. Exceptional bonuses or gift items. If it's henchmen, that means magic. But if you go with double pay, suddenly, double pay, friends of yours, you can have a charisma of 5 and they'll still work with you. If you are, we'll look at general treatment. If you are just and kind always, you don't even have to always be just and kind, just usually, that's a 10%. So already, look at that. With the morale bonuses, you are already at a plus 5 for morale. So we got that going for us. If you, and here's the other thing, be a good person. If you're lawful good, you get a plus 15 to that modifier. Situational modifiers, don't die. Well, I mean, you do the best you can, right? But even if your liege dies in combat, that's not so bad. Let's see, each hit die or level of friendly, plus 2%, right? As long as you're still alive, each henchman present, liege present, that's you hired him, you're the liege. As long as you're alive, you get a bonus of 15%. Maybe that means sergeant. You guys can correct me. But the point is, even if you are an ugly son of a gun. Relatable. Actually, it's not. We're down here. You know it. People that watch this channel, they're down here in the bonuses. Come on now. Anyway, the point is, even if you're down here in this gray section up here, you're such a hideous goof that you've only got room for one henchman who's with you more out of pity than anything else. You can overcome these with good treatment, with good pay. Take care of your boys, and they'll take care of you. One last thing I want to talk about is this dichotomy that everybody wants to run solo, and everybody thinks, well, listen, I play the game because I want to be the biggest, baddest dude around, and I need to be able to solo punch my way through everything. Well, all right, I understand that, and that's the way we've been playing for 40 years. There's no need for me to sit down here and flip through the books and point out a whole bunch of rules and some fun and strange interactions to play the game that you're already playing the way you're playing it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, there is no shame in being the leader of men. I have been criticized on social media for treating these hirelings as disposable and throwing them away for nothing. Whoa, time out. That's not what leaders do. You won't be sending these hirelings into death trap dungeons. You will be doing everything you can to take care of them. These modifiers here are powerful incentives to ensure that you do. If you are mistreating them, pay of treasure, right? Training, where is it? Association, wait, where'd it go? There was a thing here. Discipline, general treatment. If you're inhuman and heartless, bang, 25%. If you don't treat them right, they're going to run off. But also, because we are trying to be the Aragorn, be the Boromir, we're not taking on the Dark Lord one-on-one. We're leading entire armies, right? Think about that scene for Frodo. And I use Lord of the Rings. Some of my friends get really chapped when I do that. They're like, no, hey, think about Conan. That's another good one. Think about Roger Zelazny. I mean, we could go through this Appendix N right here, and you'd think it would be a little more dog-eared based on how often I refer to it for inspiration on what I should be reading. Man, there's a lot of appendixes. N-O, where are we? LMN. I know what's on this one anyway. Let's just look at it real quick. This will be kind of fun. I haven't even thought about this. Yeah, Michael Moorcock, right? Did Stormbringer, right? Hawkmoon was more of a henchman. Did he ever lead armies? Kind of. I remember he led the Young Kingdoms to beat up on the Mole Naboni, right? Paul Anderson, all right, so with the Paladin, yeah, okay, I'll give you that one. Pellucidar series. Oh, Edgar Rice Burroughs with the Venus series and World's End, and what else did Edgar Rice Burroughs write? Was there something that we could steal from that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote? Was there a leader of men who freed slaves? Was there? Come on, guys, you know who I'm talking about. I don't even need to say the name. You already know who I'm talking about, right? One of the greatest heroes of all literature. John Carter of Mars was a leader of men. We admire him because he was such a wonderful leader that people wanted to follow him. And you even get to the point at name level where people want to follow your character. This is, having hundreds of people hanging on your every word, being able to command the loyalty and the honor of these men is being that level of responsibility. It's a powerful responsibility. And if you're playing the domain game, bear that in mind, that most people tend to approach these books from a point of view of, well, I am playing lawful good, and I'm playing a good guy, and I got to play a good, and I like that, right? Because we are who we pretend to be good as practice to be good people. But if you're playing the domain game and somebody decides, listen, I got to take the bad guy, I am going to play the Doom Lord, and I am going to mistreat my boys, and I'm going to underpay them, and I'm going to treat them like slaves, that is a legitimate faction to play. If someone hands you the Nine Princes in Amber, and that's kind of a bad example. I'm trying to think. Somebody says, look, you got to play the Doom Lord. We got to have some bad guys, right? If you're playing and what have we seen? We've seen Frogtown in Trollopolis. Or was that Dubzaron? We've seen the bad guys play, and we've seen, A lot of these guys, it's kind of iffy. But we've seen the armies of bad guys led by player characters, and these same rules apply. But even if you just want to be the golden-hearted hero, there is room for heroes like Chesty Puller. I think that was his name. That's the guy, right? There's room for heroes. You look at guys like, who else led armies was Jason. Think about Jason in the Argonauts, right? He had his hirelings. Now, granted, they were all volunteers, but granted, they had to try out to sail around. But think about Odysseus, right? One of the greatest heroes of the Greco-Roman era. He was a leader of men, and he didn't squander the lives of his men. He didn't, he treated them with the respect that they had earned and they deserved. You can treat your men however you want. And the fact that you have been smart enough to hire these men in no way takes away from your own heroism. The other thing to point out is that at some point you may need to hire more people, because I do not care how bad a dude you are. I don't care if you're a bad enough dude to save the president's daughter. If the president's daughter has been kidnapped, and the Russian president's daughter has been kidnapped, and the Chinese president's daughter has been kidnapped, and the Saudi Arabian president's daughter has been kidnapped, and Microsoft's daughter's president has been kidnapped, you can't be in all 5 places at the same time. Spider-Man knows this. It's the reason Spider-Man has a secret identity. He doesn't have the scratch to hire a whole bunch of bodyguards to follow MJ around, or Gwen Stacy, right? These are guys, the guys like Odysseus, or look at how you would think things work in the real world today. Our powerful people, even some of the most powerful guys around, championship boxers, they have security personnel. They hire security. They hire security for their families. The most powerful people need to hire hirelings to secure not just the immediate environs of their personal self, but also so that they can project force around the entire map, so that they can have a base that is safe, that they can stash their loot, they can stash their family, they can stash, whatever, allies, or if there's political intrigue and they capture a prisoner, they need to keep that prisoner captured. There's all kinds of reasons that you're going to want to have hirelings, even at the mid to high level range. You can't be everywhere. You can't do it all. But fortunately, if you can land a big score, your influence can extend beyond the tip of your sword. And I'll say this. If you're not playing in a game where the dungeon master is treating the enemies as smart enough to hit you where you're not, to hit you where you are weakest, then your dungeon master is purposely gimping your enemies. And any victory that you achieve will be hollow, because it is not a victory against the best of the best. And here's where we circle back around to how to win at RPGs. We want to go up against the best, not just the NPCs run by the dungeon master, but NPCs run by our friends. And when you can achieve a victory, when you can spoil the plots of the NPC, or I shouldn't say the NPCs, but the factions run by the best opponent around, the other players. When you've got the forces to upset their plans and the forces to ensure they don't upset yours, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons as a war game, and you are playing the game at a higher level. And when you can defeat those brilliant opponents across the table from you, then we all know what you just did. You won at RPGs. That's all I got for you today. I'm praying for you.